Thank you very much, Madam President, for your inspiring speech, for speaking directly to the students. And it's the students who are here to discuss with you, who are invited to ask questions, which I now invite from the audience, from our Humboldt University students. Please be courageous and break the ice, as we say in German. Who does the ice-breaking effort? I can't believe that, because normally, there's somebody in the very back. Please speak up, you get a microphone. Just wait a second, that everybody can hear you.
First of all, thank you very much for your speech.
Open. Okay, these obstacles.
No? Yeah. Thank you very much for your speech. My question was that there was a proposal not so long ago that new member states to the EU might join without the full voting rights, so that when there's a reform process to the EU, there won't be any more veto powers inside the Council. Is Kosovo in favor of that, or would you like to join under such pre-potential?
Very difficult question from the start, I would say.
A very good question. We are in favor of it because we've seen how the enlargement process, unfortunately, from time to time turns from a process that should be seen from the strategic point of view as a strategic imperative of the European Union itself to some very domestic political considerations that individual member states have. We've seen plenty of times when only one member state blocks the will of everyone else. And I think enlargement should be seen from a wider point of view. If you look at the Western Balkans as a region, I think it's about time that we are seen as a potential rather than as a burden. As a human potential to begin with, we have the youngest population in Europe that is tech-savvy, multilingual, brilliant, ready to contribute to the wider continent and its development. Secondly, I think it's an economic potential. Given all of the developments in other continents, it's about time that Europe uses the potential that it has within its own territory, and that would include, of course, our region too. And thirdly, I think it's a security imperative. The more our region moves towards the European Union, the more peace and stability there would be, and that in turn is good for the entire European Union and the entire continent, not just for us. Of course, I always argue that this needs to be a merit-based process, not based on shortcuts. I think countries, in order to move ahead, they need to align with the common foreign and security policy of the European Union. You cannot sit in two chairs at once. There should be no gray zone. There is a clear right and a clear wrong on where you stand on the big issues and where you stand on the values. We in Kosovo have been 100% aligned with the European Union, both on sanctions against Russia and other countries that have not, of course, been contributing, but rather fighting our values. And at the same time, on every single other decision of the European Union that relates to defense or defense and security on one side and foreign policy on the other. The same with NATO. We're already contributing more than 2% of our GDP to defense, and in a matter of another mandate, so about 4 years, we're planning to double that down. So we're contributing not just to the aims and goals, but also to the values of the European Union. And I think if we do that, and if we do our homework, and if we carry out all of the reforms, there should be a way to open the door and let us in so that we can contribute to this great union too.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Other questions from the audience? Yes, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam President. It was a very inspiring speech. You spoke about resilience. And in Germany, we have a discourse that we need to have some democratic resilience, or we have to develop it. So from your point of view, what is the first task that we as a European Union have to learn in democratic resilience?
Obviously, I don't feel like I should give lessons to the European Union member states, but I guess because after the Second World War, the countries that had to go through a war about 25, 26 years ago were Kosovo, Bosnia-Herzegovina, Croatia, and until the war in Ukraine happened, we were the last war in Europe. For our generation, all of us from our delegation that are sitting here, the memories of not living free, not living in a democracy are very fresh. And every generation before us had to go through a war. So practically our kids are the very first generation in the history of the existence of our nation that have only lived in peace. Every single generation before our kids had to go through a war. And unfortunately, that very bad experience, that horrible experience, has also taught us that none of the freedoms that we enjoy today need to be taken for granted. And that makes us very, very resilient in defending our democracy and defending our freedoms. But then we would travel around members of the European Union, and you see that people just forget. And they take everything that they have for granted. And I think that makes you less resilient, because the moment you are challenged, the moment your freedoms are challenged, the moment your democracy is challenged, you're not resilient enough to defend it. I remember when the war in Ukraine started, and there was this big meeting with many members of the European Union and other countries, and everyone was complaining about the energy bills and all of that. And when I said, freedom is worth the price, everyone was looking at me as if I was crazy. But the point is this: when you don't have freedom, when you can't live in peace, nothing else will ever matter, whether it's the energy price or economic development or the right to go to university, the quality of education, the quality of the health system, because you will have none of it. When you're not safe, you don't have any of these things. You're kicked out of your home is destroyed, you lose your loved ones, you become a refugee. You don't have anymore the luxury of dealing with the energy price. And for that reason, I think the most fundamental lesson is we should never take peace and freedom for granted. It's something you need to nurture every single day, and that makes you very, very resilient in dealing with the challenges of today, even when war is not necessarily happening in our territory as an individual country, but it's happening in our continent. We need to be able to show that democratic resilience and not allow extreme forces to destroy what was built, through very hard-won freedoms with a lot of sacrifice.
Thank you so much. Yes, please. There's a lady.
First of all, thank you so much for your speech. It was really enriching. You, when you answered the question from a person before, you said that Kosovo does its homework. And I really like that metaphor. What would you say would be the metaphor or the homework of the diaspora, me especially as a Kosovar living in Germany? What is my homework to contribute to Kosovo coming to the European Union, and what is a homework of the diaspora in Germany?
Oh, thank you for asking that question. Normally, people tell us what we should do. They don't ask, the questions in the style of, what you can do for your country. And thank you so much for asking that, because it shows your love not only for the home that you have today and where you prosper here in Germany, but also the love that you have for Kosovo. And I think in terms of what the diaspora can do, you're already doing so much. Not just economically by supporting the Republic of Kosovo, but there is a lot of brain gain process going on, especially in a number of areas. A lot of businesses investing in Kosovo that is increasing the level of economic development in Kosovo. We have the highest GDP growth in the region for the 5th consecutive year. According to Gallup International, Kosovo is the top country in the entire European continent in terms of rule of law, safety, and security. So we're topping Europe, and we're number 3 in the world. Now, according to the Global Index on Investment Resilience, which was published yesterday, which shows how secure a country is to make foreign direct investment, we are number 26 in the world, but we are above the United States of America, above Japan, and above most European Union member states in terms of how secure your investments in Kosovo are. We're very, very proud of these achievements, but none of that would have happened without the support of our diaspora and the trust that the diaspora is showing in the Republic of Kosovo. I would say one very particular thing that the young generation can do is cooperate with the young generation in Kosovo to share your experience, whether that would mean you coming and spending some time in Kosovo, whether that is in the academic sector or in the business sector, but primarily I would say in the information and technology sector, which is booming in Kosovo, being the country with the highest IT competitiveness rate in Southeastern Europe for the 2nd year in a row. So there are a number of areas where you can give a large contribution, while of course always prospering here in Germany, but sharing that strength that you have in a certain profession with Kosovo as well. And that in turn becomes a strong bridge between Germany and Kosovo, bringing the countries closer together, whether in economic development, educational cooperation, cultural cooperation, and other areas. So I think there's a lot that you can do, but a lot of that you have already been doing. So thank you for that.
This is also a very nice experience for me as a professor. When I teach to these students, I never ask the nationality. We don't do that. But when guest presidents are coming in the Humboldt speeches, people turn up and say, I'm from Kosovo, from Poland, I don't know. That is very nice, and a very nice experience, and it makes university, being a university, I suppose the University of Pristina has the same mixture of all nations all over the world. So there was a question in the back row. Please, the gentleman there. Yeah.
Madam President, thank you very much. I am a subject in a European experiment in democracy called the United States of America. Now, as you know, the outcome of this experiment is becoming increasingly uncertain day by day. And I'm wondering if you have any suggestions, comments for those of us on the other side of the Atlantic who are not only experiencing the uncertainty you talk about, but also look to Europe not only for our heritage, but also for leadership.
Perhaps I can share our experience as a region and our experience with the United States as a lesson. If we look at recent history, recent meaning Second World War, because we're quite an ancient people, so when we talk about history, we talk about thousands of years, not just, centuries. But so if we talk about Second World War onwards, there's a lesson that we have learned as Europeans. And that is the Euro-Atlantic alliance that made peace possible. It's the leadership role of the United States of America that made peace possible. Now, we in Kosovo strongly believe in the idea of a Europe whole, free, and at peace, and we want to join the European Union. But we also saw back in the 90s that if it wasn't for the United States of America's leadership role, peace would have never come to Europe. Never. We would have heard a lot of beautiful speeches, but when it comes about action, it took the leadership role of the United States of America to fight the aggressor, to make sure that the aggressor, Milosevic, ends up in The Hague, and to make sure that finally, freedom and peace were possible for a region that had never known peace in the history of its existence. That's what the United States of America does. It's a force for good. It's a force that makes peace possible. And that has a multiplying effect everywhere in the world, because a safe and secure Europe is also in the interest of the United States of America. A safe and secure Europe is an economic powerhouse also that can go positively towards American interests. A safe and secure Europe is the strongest ally that America needs in the world. And of course, 9/11 has only showcased that. When 9/11 happened, all of the European countries, all of the NATO members came to the rescue and to the support of the United States on day one, convening Article 5 of the NATO Pact. And that showcased that no matter how strong and no matter how big you are, you always need friends by your side. You always need allies by your side. And the reason why Europe came to the support of the United States is because the United States did not turn a blind eye when we needed you. You came to our rescue. For the people of Kosovo, the role of the United States has been indispensable in the history of our liberation, in the history of our independence, and in the history of building our democracy, which is why today we're the most pro-American nation on earth, with 97% of the people of Kosovo supporting the United States and, of course, supporting our EU integration and NATO integration. And I think while it might take some time for some to understand that these alliances, this Euro-Atlantic family of nations, has been our greatest strength, and that our power actually lies in our partnerships, I think we still always get there. So I think it's just a matter of time, and it's a matter of patience, and I strongly believe that everyone will understand that this is our greatest strength. The alliance, the Euro-Atlantic alliance, the United States and Europe together in defense of the values that have made us great and in defense of the values that have made us different from aggressors and in defense of the values that have made us the strong, resilient, and democratic countries that we are today. That is a lesson that we learn from history. And it's very simple. When Europe is not at peace, when Europe is not strong and safe, I don't think America can be as strong as we want it to be either. And we want to see America as the leader of the free world, which is what it was for us. And I strongly believe, at least in the case of Kosovo, that's the role that they have been continuing to play. And we've been very, very blessed to have bipartisan support, no matter which administration came. And I, as president, of course, I engage to work with every administration to keep this spirit up and to keep the spirit of cooperation not just open, but very much alive and strong. I think it is indispensable to make sure that this partnership between Europe and the United States continues as strong as possible. And despite current challenges, I'm very, very hopeful that we will get to a strong point. I'm really hopeful.
Thank you so much. So there are several. Please start here. Yes. And then.
Thank you so much for your speech. You've talked a lot about Kosovo being quite a young republic, and so I guess it's known for a fact that the international status of Kosovo still is disputed, and especially not every member of the European Union acknowledges your independence. And I was wondering how that influences your journey as a country, your journey, your independence, and also your place in Europe and in the world.
Out of all of the EU member states, only 5 have not recognized the Republic of Kosovo. I'm not trying to diminish the fact that there are 5, but we should not overemphasize the minority of the countries over the vast majority that have recognized the Republic of Kosovo. The vast majority of the world have. The vast majority of democracies around the world have recognized us. And we have been working very, very closely with the countries that have recognized us to make sure that not only bilaterally we establish excellent economic and political relations, but at the same time we work within international organizations to make sure that we have a strong voice. Now, of course, it can become challenging. We're not a member of the United Nations yet, but we always find a way to have a voice. Kosovo has been championing a number of initiatives worldwide, and despite not being a member of the United Nations, we always punch above our weight, and we do more than most UN member states. because we strongly believe that the power of a nation should not be determined by its size alone, but also by the story that it has to tell. And the story of Kosovo is one of democracies triumphing over aggressors. It's a story that needs to be told over and over again. It's a great success story. Is your success story too? It's a great success story for Germany, for the United States of America, for democracies around the world. It shows you how powerful we can be when we stand together for the values of freedom and democracy. And it shows that there's no aggressor that can stand in our way when we are so unified in defense of these values. So yes, there have been challenges on the way. And the reason why we're not at the United Nations is mostly because of the Russian veto. But that has not stopped us from becoming a powerhouse on so many of the values that we defend. As I just mentioned, we're topping the list of all European countries in terms of safety and security. One of the safest countries to walk during the night, one of the safest countries in terms of rule of law reforms, one of the countries that is doing well economically, although I don't want to paint a rosy picture and say that everything is perfect. Challenges remain, and that's why we work with every country that has not recognized Kosovo yet to try to open a path towards the decision making. And no country has ever lost anything by recognizing the Republic of Kosovo, quite the opposite. They have gained a friend, a partner, and an ally that they can count on. So, of course, we always renew that call, and despite of the International Court of Justice being very clear that Kosovo's independence is in full compliance with international law and that no provision of general international law or any specific UN Security Council resolution being violated, there are many countries that are not respecting that ruling of the court, but yet that doesn't mean that our patience should go grim or that we should give up. Quite the opposite. It makes us even more resilient in fighting for our rightful place in the community of free nations. There is mostly domestic political issues that countries have when they decide to not recognize for the moment. But, Kosovo's independence is an irreversible reality. We're not going anywhere. We're here to stay. Sovereign, free, independent, forever, as a permanent project. So, I think when a country decides to recognize the Republic of Kosovo, they not only recognize the very long struggle for freedom and the sacrifice of generations, but at the same time, they do a great favor to long-term peace and stability to our region. Because by recognizing the Republic of Kosovo, they not only help us, it's like the last piece of the puzzle towards long-lasting stability and peace, and they also liberate Serbia from their past. It helps them look towards the future and not cling to a past that is not to be glorified, to be very honest with you. It's a past, the Milosevic past is nothing to be proud of. It's something that should be cut, and make a distance from, the same way that Willy Brandt, when kneeling in front of the victims here, said, I am doing something that a human being does when words are not enough in front of the victims. Words are not enough. We need that kind of leadership. But the more countries recognize the independence of Kosovo, the more they not only help peace and stability in our region, but also they liberate Serbia from the denial of their past and helps them move towards a joint Euro-Atlantic future with the rest of the region.
There is one question here.
Dear President Osmani, it's a pleasure, an honor being here. I am Ambassador of El Salvador, and I have goosebumps during your speech, wise speech, because El Salvador has a history defending democracy, and it's not easy. And I know what you are talking about, and I just want to congratulate you. And you are a role model to follow for a lot of women and the young generations. Thank you for visiting El Salvador. You remember me, my president, Nayib Bukele. You have the opportunity to talk to him and met him in El Salvador last year. Thank you very much for that, and count with El Salvador. So thank you
so much.
Congratulations.
Muchísimas gracias. President Bukele has said something very wise when he was told, you know, you're arresting so many criminal gangs and so on and so forth. What about their human rights? And he asked, what about the human rights of their victims? It is very, very crucial that we never forget that when we fight for the fundamental human rights and freedoms of our people, that is always a fight worth fighting for. And sometimes governments that are very engaged in fighting criminal gangs can be misunderstood. Sometimes our institutions are also misunderstood in our fight for rule of law in every part of our territory. But it's an indispensable fight, because only when people feel free from the undue and criminal influence of gangs, of those that have found crime and corruption as the way to create that influence, only then we can talk about true democracy. Only then we can say that we're defending the very values of human dignity, which are at the foundation of our country. So I strongly believe that democratic resilience that you asked me at the beginning is very much connected to not making compromise with crime. Being uncompromising to criminals is the very foundation of democracy, I believe. And you know, there are often times when people misunderstand that fight, but I think we should be uncompromised. There is no compromise with criminals if you want your people to live free, and if you want them to use those freedoms in the best way possible. So we have excellent relations with El Salvador, and we're so grateful for the support of President Bukele and all of your government.
Thank you. There was a question here. Yes, please, gentlemen.
Madam President, thank you for your speech. Over the last mostly 2 years, we have seen a rising effort by the Russian Kremlin to influence European civil society and most notably European elections in the Russian favor and in the favor of the Russian position in the Russo-Ukrainian war. Now in Kosovo, I would assume that Russian influence, especially through the Russian vassal Serbia, is still a lot more noticeable. Would you say that Kosovo and the people of Kosovo have developed or have ever always had a certain resilience to that Russian influence? And if so, are there lessons that Europeans, especially Western Europeans, I mean many Eastern Europeans have also suffered under, the Soviet Union and now Russia, are there lessons to be learned from Kosovo and from the people of Kosovo?
I think the best lesson to be learned is that these European countries can learn is from their own history, to be very frank with you. Although, of course, the history of Kosovo is more recent, but Berlin is such a great example to learn from. I mean, this great country, this great city was divided because of what Russia represents, because of what Russia was trying to push forward, because of how malign it is. And this great city today is united because the people of Germany did not accept that Russian influence, but fought it with all its means. Russia means separation, and the very idea of a unified Europe, which we tried to defend together, is risked through this influence. Obviously, in Kosovo, there is very, very minimal influence. I think according to the latest polls, only about 2% of the people, and of course they belong to a certain minority community that is also influenced by Belgrade, but only 2%. However, of course, there's our northern neighbor, where the trust in Kremlin is about 83%, and this is then destabilizing the entire region. But I think lessons from history are quite fresh. It's enough for everyone to just go home and ask your parents or grandparents. And they fought and sacrificed for the freedom that everyone enjoys today on the European continent. And to put that at risk is probably one of the biggest mistakes to be made in the history of the existence of this continent. So I think it's up to your generation as young people to use every instrument that you have in hand, every democratic instrument that you have in hand, especially using technology to fight that malign influence that is coming from Russia, to be able to defend the hard-won freedoms that you enjoy today. I mean, I mentioned it in my speech. The very fact that we can go to school free is not a freedom that I enjoyed. It's not a freedom that my generation enjoyed. Our professors and students at that time were killed just because we wanted to carry a pen, to carry a pencil and a notebook. For that only. Nothing else, just for that, for the right to speak our own language. And these are not things that should be forgotten that quickly. And you know, everywhere you walk in Berlin, history reminds you what Russia brings. It brings suffering, it brings division. It brings the destroying of the very idea that a unified and free Europe is. So it's up to you as the young generation of Europeans, alongside all of us that want to join the European Union, to defend these freedoms from this great risk. And you know, it's not that Russia has changed that much, to be honest. They've always used the same strategies, the same playbooks. They always wanted to take as much territory as possible, illegally invade as much as possible, so that something can remain for them at the end of negotiations. It's the same tactic, it's the same playbook, it's the same aggressors, it's the same imperialistic and hegemonic mindset. But at the same time, we need to be stronger and more resilient than ever in refusing that kind of mindset. And I know that it's not easy when people face economic hardships, when people face, you know, high prices to pay. But imagine not having any of that. Imagine not having a home where you can pay the energy price. Imagine not having any of these supermarkets, any of these universities. Imagine having all of this destroyed. That's what Russia represents. At least we need to give peace a chance. When peace is possible, and that's never possible with Russia having a say, when peace is possible, then you can overcome the economic hardships and all of the other challenges that we're facing. But I would say the generations before us, our parents, our grandparents, they have passed the test. Now it's up to you, the young generation, to make sure that you defend the Europe that you have inherited from your parents. The Europe that is a project of peace. Yes, economy and everything else, but before everything else, it's a project of peace.
Okay, please, your question. Your question. You wanted to ask a question, I think? Yes.
Können Sie dann übersetzen, bitte? Ich stelle auf Deutsch.
I have a try, yeah.
Okay.
Also, a short question.
Ich wollte sagen, 2025 ist ein Bericht rausgekommen, dass Kosovo auf dem 73. Platz ist, ich glaube mit 44 Punkten in der Korruptionsstatistik. Yeah. Und Transparency, also International, glaube ich, oder wie es heißt, das ist in Berlin, was es auch herausgegeben hat. Und ich würde mal gerne fragen, von diesen 13 halt Wahrnehmungen, also 13 Punkten, was auch getestet wurde und so, diese Wahrnehmung, Korruptionswahrnehmung, gibt es denn irgendwie schon Maßnahmen oder Reformen bis 2030 oder 2035, dass man das irgendwie ändert?
My apologies, I'm not a professional translator, but the young gentleman mentions the issue of corruption and the Transparency International
mit Sitz in Berlin.
Ranking from Berlin, which ranks you at place 73, as far as I remembered. So, what measures are undertaken to fight corruption in the near future? That's basically the question.
Yes, corruption used to be, I would say, one of the biggest problems in Kosovo. And according to Transparency International, in the past, if we go back around 5 years ago, Kosovo was at the bottom of our region in terms of fighting crime and corruption, and now is at the top of the region after 5 years and all of the rule of law reforms that we have undertaken. Kosovo has the highest increase in points it's in top 3 of all of the countries that are in the Transparency International reforms. So if you look at how much progress we've achieved in the past 5 years, we're in the top 3 reformers in the world from all of the countries that are indexed in the Transparency International Corruption Perception Index. Now, there are still a lot of things that we have to do. We are adopting excellent legislation, but implementation is stalling, especially in the justice system. So there needs to be a number of reforms in the courts and in the prosecutorial system. The problem is whenever we ask the prosecutors and the judges to reform, they say, oh, this is interference. I don't think asking a judge and a prosecutor to be fully independent, fully impartial, and to work in line with the Constitution is interference. That is not interference. When crime interferes, when businesses interfere, when politicians interfere on what the decision should be, and when the judges bypass the law to listen to businesses or to corruption, that is interference. Because I strongly believe that while judges have to be and prosecutors need to be completely independent from business, from crime, and from politics, they are not independent from the Constitution and the law. They have to abide by the Constitution and the law. And that's all that I'm asking them to be. And so far, I think there's still a lot that they have to do in order for Kosovo to reach even higher in the Transparency International Corruption Perception Index, because most of the criticism that exists right now in that report is about how the justice system still needs a lot to do to make sure that they deal with some of the high-level corruption cases and so on. So a lot that needs to be done, but when it comes to politics, most of what could be done was done. Now it's up to the justice system to be reformed.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Yes. There is somebody standing in the very back, and then here in the very front.
Hi, thank you, Madam President, for your speech. My question is if the European Union is a trustworthy partner, especially in last times, because they imposed sanctions on Kosovo for simply following rule of law and imposing rule of law. And for example, our northern neighbor, as you called them, and as it is, Serbia, were an authoritarian regime of Alexander Vucic, who was a propaganda minister in the times of Milosevic's terror regime, gets all the benefits and is appeased every day. So yeah, that's my question, if the EU is still the trustworthy partner it once was.
I wouldn't say that the EU is a perfect union, but it's the best. It's the best, and for us it's the only path, it's the only alternative. We have never looked elsewhere. We never flirt with other malign powers. We don't try to sit in 2 chairs at once. For us there's no gray zone as to where we belong. It's the European Union and the European Union only. But just because we are so pro-European Union, we should not be taken for granted. A country like the Republic of Kosovo, where 97% of its people trust in Europe, a country that is 100% aligned with the EU foreign and security policy, a country that always aligns, whether on sanctions or economy or other principles, a country that constantly defends EU values, and a country that has potential to offer to the European Union, should be considered as a serious candidate. Rather, what is happening in practice is there is no merit-based process. The door has not been opened to us yet, whereas there are a lot of countries trying to push Serbia forward, although their alignment with the European Union is only at 46%, according to the EU itself. No sanctions against Russia, no sanctions against Hezbollah, no sanctions against other terrorist organizations. So they cooperate with a triangle of evil with Russia, China, and Iran, whether on economy or militarily or politically, but they get all of the EU money. We believe that the EU cash should go hand in hand with EU values. We believe that the EU should not be seen as a cash machine, but as a system of values. And only those countries that stick to those values should get the economic support and should get the chapters opened and should get them closed. Unfortunately, right now, that is not what happens. The countries who spend the 9th of May in Moscow get more benefits than those of us that align with the European Union. So, of course, merit-based process is what we hear, but I would say it's about time that the European Union walks the talk. And I think you can do a lot because you're constituents. So it's very important that you ask your politicians and those who represent you to walk the talk and to make sure that those countries who deliver on the homework and on the EU values also get the EU candidate status and the chapters opened, and then if they deliver also get them closed, and not the other way around, because so far a bad message has been sent to our region.
Thank you. So there's this gentleman in front of me.
Madam President, my question is about the true value of the terms, of the words. You speak quite, eloquent about peace and terrorists disguised as, peacemakers, so to say. You gave the example of Hezbollah, I would add Hamas, Russian war in Ukraine, that's the clear example. But there are societies which are divided on their understanding of peace. So could you elaborate on the true meaning, coming back to the true value of the terms, true meaning of the terms? Like peace is one of them.
That's a very deep question. And you are right. It's depending on where you live and depending on which country you live. Yes, you come from the Balkans? Yeah, from Bulgaria. We're a very close neighbor, so Bulgaria is a country that was always affected by what was happening in the Balkans. For us, the true value of peace, among others, rests on the principle of not appeasing the aggressors. I think history teaches us that appeasement of aggressors never leads to long-lasting peace. Quite the opposite. It emboldens the aggressor to become more arrogant, more violent, and more imperialistic in terms, and hegemonic in terms of its ambitions, territorial ambitions. And that has been tried. You come from Bulgaria, so you would remember in early 90s, many diplomats from the West were saying, Milosevic is the peacemaker. Yeah, peace without Milosevic is impossible, some were saying. Where did that logic take us? It resulted with 150,000 civilians killed in the wars of the Balkans, with Croatia, Bosnia-Herzegovina, and Kosovo bearing the hardest of burdens. We have the highest number of children killed per capita of any war in former Yugoslavia, and we still have thousands of people missing from the war that are in massive graves in Serbia. There was one prime minister of Serbia that accepted the past and did not deny the truth. At that time, Djindjic, who famously said, he was educated here in Germany, and he said, he's quoted to have said, how can I invite investors in Germany, from Germany, to come to Serbia and invest in Serbia when Serbia sleeps in massive graves? So he did not deny the truth of what Milosevic did, but he was killed. He was killed by Serbian gangs. The problem is today we face a leader in Serbia who not only glorifies Milosevic but denies the past. And I think the principle of not denying the past but dealing with the past, the principle that was taught so well here in Germany, is a principle that needs to be respected in order for peace to be sustainable and peace to be achieved. So again, going back to the principles, one, never appease aggressors because peace will not be sustainable. Look at the example of Ukraine. Invasion after invasion after invasion for 400 years. Don't appease aggressors. It never brings long-lasting peace. And second, I would say, make sure that peace comes with justice. Justice for the victims is crucial for peace to be sustainable and to last for generations. Otherwise, it's very, very fragile. So these two principles, I think, are extremely important. Finally, never think that war is too far away from home. And don't take the freedoms that you have for granted, because again, let's look at Ukraine, but also other conflicts around the world. One day you live at peace, you go out with your friends, you have great fun, you go to school, you go to university, and the next day you have to hide in the basement from the bombings of an aggressor. So just making sure that we stand our foot in the ground and understand how fragile it is as long as these aggressors are our neighbors is very, very important. Finally, let's understand that alliances of democracies is our greatest bet that we have. It's our greatest power. It's where our power lies. It's in our partnerships. We need to stick to that, work with like-minded countries if we want to defend the peace that we have. So just a number of issues, but of course every country has their own lessons to learn from.
Thank you very much. So I think I have more or less two, let me say, final questions over here. Is that correct? So the gentleman, you choose who is first. You both have your questions. Don't worry about me.
I greatly appreciate your speech today, Madam President. My question goes into the region. We've seen a lot of tendencies coming from the government in Beograd that influence on international settlements, such as thinking of Milorad Dodik in Bosnia, or infringing with borders, or the mini Schengen area, which still lacks implementation nowadays to its full extent. How does Serbian influence still impact your daily lives in Kosovo? And extending on that, how can maybe a wider integration to other Western Balkan nations aid these damages?
That's a very good question. And if you look at our history, you will see that we always have great relations with every other country in the Western Balkans, and that counts for Bosnia-Herzegovina, for Albania, North Macedonia, Montenegro, and am I missing anyone? No. Okay, so everyone practically, even countries like Croatia and Slovenia that are a little bit further but are part of the region, and Bulgaria, Greece, and so on. We have excellent relations with everyone, practically. So there's only one source of instability in our region, unfortunately, and that is Serbia. I do hope that the people of Serbia will find a way to look towards the future. And it takes leadership, obviously, as it took leadership here in Germany to move past their past and look towards a future where peace and prosperity unified around the same values was the answer. But justice was also the answer. Now, we are working very closely with other countries in the region. The risk that comes from Serbia is mostly from a security point of view. So if we see what happened in Kosovo in 2023, they committed an act of aggression against Kosovo with the aim of annexing the north of Kosovo, clearly based on the Putin playbook and the playbook that Putin used in annexing territories in Ukraine, in Moldova, and elsewhere. But we managed to thwart that attack in the very first hour that it started, and they did not manage to take even a centimeter of our territory. We managed that because of our very professional and resilient security institutions, but also with the support of our allies, because we have NATO in the ground. So I would say very strong security institutions as a means of deterrence, a strong NATO presence in our region, again, as a means of deterrence, but at the same time, strong cooperation with everyone like-minded in the region. For example, we recently signed an alliance, a defense alliance with a defense cooperation agreement with Croatia and Albania, a trilateral agreement that is helping us strengthen our defense sector. We're spending a lot on our defense, and we're going to double that down in the next couple of years, just to make sure that we're ready to defend ourselves. Hopefully, we will never have to use any of that, but we need to be ready. We need to be prepared. When you have a crazy neighbor, it's better to be prepared. And better before it happens, rather than when it becomes too late. So, weapons supply, a strong army, strong police, a strong democratic resilience that does not accept the Russian propaganda and the Serbian propaganda and disinformation, but also cooperation with everyone else that believes in like-minded values has been the answer so far. We need more support from European Union member states to make sure that Serbia gets a strong message. But so far, only a few countries have been very vocal about it. So we hope more and more EU member states will be vocal about stopping these destabilization tactics that Serbia has been using against Kosovo, against Bosnia and Herzegovina, occasionally against Montenegro. But, you know, we're used to that. That's what they do. But I hope that the European Union can stop these destabilization tactics, because then this is hurting everyone in the region, not just us. It's kind of creating a perception that the Balkans is not a safe place to live, not a safe place to invest, and not countries that deserve to join the European Union. So I think the more EU works with Serbia to stop these tactics, the more they will be contributing to the entire region that is the Western Balkans.
Thank you so much for your patience with all these questions. There's still another question, if you allow. Yeah. Please.
Thank you very much for being here, Madam President. My question is about your efforts to join the EU. So my understanding of it is that the EU has made it an informal prerequisite for your country to join the EU to normalize your relations with Serbia. And so I think it's fair to say that at the moment this will probably not happen. So I was wondering if you think there can be a scenario where you can, as a nation, join the EU without this change in diplomatic relationships to Serbia, and how do you think this would affect the dynamic between your country and Serbia? Thank you very much.
So in the dialogue with Serbia, there have been a number of agreements achieved since 2011. It's plenty so far. Serbia has not implemented more than 2/3 of these agreements, yet they have not only received the candidate status, but they've opened 22 chapters in negotiations with the European Union. What did Kosovo get in exchange of those exact same agreements that we accepted? 0. Not a candidate status, no chapters to negotiate, nothing at all. Although we were told that if you accept agreements in the EU-mediated talks, you will move towards European integration. Yet only one country has moved. And that is the country that has not implemented the agreements, by the way, not the one that has. Now, in the past couple of years, the European Union has proposed a number of agreements, the most famous one being the German-French proposal, which now is called the EU Agreement and the Ohrid Annex. Kosovo has accepted that agreement. It offered to sign it. Serbia did not accept the agreement, and President Vučić of Serbia says, I'm never going to sign it because I have pain in my right hand, and I will have that pain in the next 2 years, and so on and so forth. And he laughs at EU leaders. He calls them all kind of names. And but guess who is under EU restrictions? It's not the country that refused the agreement, but it's the country that accepted the agreement. So my question to our EU friends and partners and allies is very simple. I ask them, can you please tell us, how can we be more constructive in this dialogue? How can a country be more constructive than accept everything that you put on the table for us? How can a country be more constructive than say yes to everything that the EU has proposed? How can we be more constructive than that? But you know, in a dialogue or in any negotiation, as you know, it takes two to tango, and there's nothing we can do about making Serbia more democratic or making its leader pro-European while he is only pro-Kremlin. We cannot make him pro-peace when he still lingers in the Milosevic past and glorifies him. And we cannot make him more pro-EU values when he thinks that he can become greater by destabilizing its neighbors. So the point is, we will continue to do our homework. We will continue to be constructive in the EU-led dialogue, but we cannot change Serbia. That's not our job. The point is, the more the EU blocks Kosovo, the more it gives Serbia the message that aligning with the European Union is not the answer, but aligning with Russia is the answer, which is what they have been doing. And the more Kosovo, the most pro-European country, is put under restrictions, the more negative the message is to the entire region, because it showcases that reforms don't matter, but just, you know, flirting with Putin matters. We will not fall into that trap. Obviously, we will continue to be constructive in the EU-led dialogue, but we will not give up on our sovereignty. We will not give up on our territorial integrity. We will not give up on our constitution, which is already the constitution with the highest level of protections for minority community rights on European soil. You are lawyers yourselves. Are you all lawyers? Or a mix. Many of you are lawyers, maybe political sciences, international relations. And if you can find another European country, any country on European soil, that gives a minority community of 3% the veto right in its parliament over any constitutional change, over the change of any law of vital interest that relates to human rights, minority community rights, electoral rights, land rights, education rights, and so on. There isn't. Only Kosovo gives those rights and then replicates this strong system of representation, where out of 120 members in our parliament, even if 110 agree to add something in the constitution, the 10 Serbs can block anything. Even if 110 want to change something in our education system, the 10 Serbs can block everything. The Finnish ambassador knows here because he was part of the Ahtisaari process. We gave these strong protections so that they can feel strongly represented. The highest level, I would say, of protection that is afforded to any minority community in such a system, obviously. We're very proud that Kosovo is a multi-ethnic society, and we want to continue to strengthen these rights, but it's very, very important that the dialogue process that happens in Brussels strengthens the people and not the political career of Aleksandar Vučić. I don't think European leaders should care that much about his political career, or the political career of any politician for that matter. The moment we put people's rights front and center, that is when the dialogue can succeed. But so far, I would say that it's been a very unbalanced approach. Now we support, of course, the new EU High Representative, and we do hope that there will be a new momentum coming up in the next couple of months.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Madam President. Now comes not another speech, don't fear anything. It's the moment for me to thank you and to also to say that we are not only full of questions and are happy about the answers, but we are also very impressed about what you're saying, because I think I speak for many of the law students in here that they are not so familiar with everything about Kosovo. I mean, that is of course, it's geographically a bit distant from Berlin. But that's not the point. We are very impressed about how you, that's my impression, how you link this, let's say, individual feeling of a nation, of having gained freedom and democracy to the values of freedom and democracy. That's something for everybody. For me, it's the moment to thank you all, to thank the audience, to thank Stiftung Mercator for their support, to thank, although he couldn't stay with us, Vice President Pinkwart for having been with us. And I also want to have a little applause for the assistants who made this possible in 14 days. I'm very glad. Normally I'm looking for, the moment has come also, of course, to thank you, and with a little gift we have, it's the speeches of those people preceding, people like Emmanuel Macron, just to mention somebody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you.